Alright, so hi guys, my name is Siege, and today we are in Gear Up Pasig, and right now I am with Pinlock International Sales Representative, Mr. Maarten de Graaf. How are you, sir?
Thanks. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Siege. Awesome.
Thank you for visiting us here in Spyder Explaining, and we're going to talk more about the Pinlock.
Correct.
And about the technicalities and things like that. So before anything else, how's your visit to the Philippines?
Fantastic, fantastic.
What local foods have you tried?
I think it was called adobo, pork adobo, which was, very tasteful. And I actually a lot of seafood. We're from the Netherlands, and the seafood is really expensive.
Yeah.
It's more like a meat-based cuisine that we have. So whenever I'm traveling through Asia, I typically eat a lot of seafood, and for me, Philippines is the perfect place for that.
Because that's so good to hear. So now let's talk about the Pinlock and the history of Pinlock. Can you please educate us about the history, where it began?
Absolutely. It all started in the 90s in the Netherlands. There was a man who was distributing helmets. So he was selling his own helmets, and by regularly visiting his dealers, he actually figured out that one of the most common problems that riders have is their visor condensating, which is not a safe thing. So by having all of these complaints, he figured, well, why not invent something that can prevent this? So he had a lot of ideas, and over time he invented, the current Pinlock system. The company itself was actually founded in 1994, also again in the Netherlands, where we still are based. Our head office is in the Netherlands. And over time it grew like the brand it is today. We're selling over 250 brands worldwide. And we're actually also really proud to be supplying our inserts to Formula 1 teams and MotoGP.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And how does this Pinlock work?
If you want to know how it works, it consists of three characteristics. The most important one is the material itself. It's quite a complex material and very unique in that it can absorb moisture. So when you're driving and you're breathing out warm air from your mouth, warm air can condensate against a colder visor, and the Pinlock prevents that by absorbing that moisture, and when you're done riding it will release it again. The second one is there's an airtight pocket, that's how we call it, between the lens and the visor, which is created by a silicon seal. Acts like a buffer between the outside temperature and the inside temperature of the helmet. The third one, the third characteristic why it works so well, is that it's a pin-based system. So the actual lens is mounted between two pins, and the pins create, let's say tension on the lens, so that the silicon sealing, which I just described, always is touching the visor. So the air pocket is always sealed. Those three characteristics combined make it a really proven concept. Like I said, we've been around for 30 years. It's being used in MotoGP. So what better benchmark do you need for a good working product? Yeah,
I was just thinking, what if one at some point in time you tried to change your mind and you wanted to remove the Pinlock? Is it easy to remove?
Yeah, you can easily take it out.
Yeah. Easily, just snap it out, just like that?
Yeah, no, I would say you have to do it with a little bit of care, right? So you take the lens and you just release it from one side of the visor, from one pin, and then you can easily take the other side off. Actually, it's also recommended to do this regularly to clean the lens. Just take, microfiber cloth and some lukewarm water and clean it, let it dry, and reinstall it.
And does it easily break?
No,
not at all.
Of course, if you want to break it, you can break it.
Yeah.
But if you use it normally, if you take it out with care and reinsert it with care, it doesn't break.
Oh, okay. And I also noticed that in Spyder we have this Pinlock 70.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, are there any other numbers?
Yeah. We have a product lineup. You can look at it like a good, better, best proposition. The first one, the good, is Pinlock 30. It's our entry-level lens. Then we have 70, and then Pinlock 120.
Okay.
So it goes from good to better, and Pinlock 120 is the best, which is mostly used in MotoGP. The helmets that we have here from Spyder, they are all prepared for a Pinlock 70, which is a fantastic lens. It's a good value for money. I think it's for the people here in the Philippines with weather like this, it's the best lens available.
And I also saw when I checked this the Pinlock packaging, I just noticed there's these 100% max lens. What does
Max Vision.
Max Vision.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
At Pinlock, again with the range, we can customize the lens to custom fit any visor. We only do this with the Pinlock 70 or 120, so this is an additional benefit for Spyder of using Pinlock 70. We custom designed the lens to cover the entire visor. So it has a safety benefit that not one single area of your visor can condensate, but also aesthetically it looks the best.
Oh, and what makes Pinlock different from other anti-fog products out there?
It's
specifically here in the Philippines. Of course, we have this something that you can spray on the helmet, which is of course not effective at all.
Yeah.
And what makes it different from other anti-fog?
It's again the unique material. It's hydrophilic, which means it absorbs the moisture. If you compare that to, like you say, a spray, right? You spray something on top of the visor, it acts like a coating. Typically these coatings, they reject water, so they're hydrophobic. So you still get water drops on your visor. With a Pinlock you don't have. But I think the most important aspect is durability. If you clean your visor, and if you have a coating, you can easily take off a little bit of that coating. Whereas with a Pinlock lens, this won't happen. In fact, if you take well care of your Pinlock lens, it can easily last up to 2 years.
Up to 2 years. Is it easy to clean?
Absolutely. You just, you take your visor off, you easily, or sorry, not easily, gently take out the Pinlock lens, and you take a microfiber cloth with some lukewarm water, and you gently wipe it clean. It's important though to leave it overnight to dry, because of the material, which is hydrophilic, it will absorb some of that moisture. So just leave it to dry for one night and reinsert it back into your visor, and you're good to go.
Maarten, are there typical questions that most of your customers ask you?
Yeah.
The frequently asked questions?
One of the most frequently asked questions is, I have a Pinlock installed, why does it still condensate? With any product, defaults can happen, right? So what can happen, and that's one of the most common questions that we have, is that there's condensation between the lens and the visor, which shouldn't happen, right? Because I just explained that we have like an airtight pocket, so there shouldn't be any moisture getting in between the lens and the visor. What you then can do is you can take out the pins, and there's a little indicator, like an arrow on the pins. You can readjust it. And if the consumer or the watchers, if you look really carefully at the pin, you'll see that the middle of the pin is not exactly in the middle. It's like eccentric, slightly offset. So if you twist the pins, reapply them, you put more tension on the lens. You move it inwards or outwards, making sure that, again, the ceiling touches the visor.
Yeah, all right.
That's one of the most common questions that we get.
All right, so any other frequently asked questions by the customers?
Yeah, it's also related to your Pinlock lens still fogging up, even though it's correctly installed. You can imagine that if a lens absorbs moisture, it also needs to release it again, right? So it might be that some customers, that's what those questions are about, that they're driving with all the air vents closed. And what then happens is, it's just a buildup of moisture within your helmet, and there's no way for the moisture to escape again. So we would always recommend, if you use Pinlock, at least open one or two of your ventilations. Don't make it really concealed, because then, of course, over time it will still condensate.
And Maarten, are there any other things that you might want to or to say to our Pinlock customers here, or those Pinlock or those customers who are interested with Pinlock here in the Philippines? Anything you wanted to tell them?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in one of those Pinlocks, then come here at Gear Up or look at the Spyder models online.
Thank you for visiting us here in Spyder and explaining everything about Pinlock. So guys, that's going to be the end of it. Next time.